Hello, everyone. Welcome to Storytelling for Youth Work project. We have here with us today Sotiris Petropoulos, who is a youth worker from Greece, to share with us his experience from storytelling in youth work. Sotiris, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ed, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be with you and ready to be really supportive to who listens to us.
So please tell us, what is storytelling for you?
For me, it is one of the most promising ways of putting forward something that needs to be communicated, to be transferred to any audience, to be honest. Though it is not something new, stories are being told and used for communication and educational purposes since, I think, forever. It has been rediscovered during the past couple of decades as an important tool to foster connection and understanding, to transfer knowledge, to share ideas, to maintain cultural heritage, etc. What is important to stress is that through storytelling, one finds himself sharing the experience of others, reacting as if the story told to him was actually happening to him. And this is one of the key benefits of using storytelling. We are transformed in a way from passive listeners to active participants, and this is what makes stories so irresistible. In a period in which interaction has been granted significant attention in terms of how best to communicate what you want to communicate to a targeted audience, a good story is a must to draw attention, engage with your audience, pass on desired messages. So this is more or less what storytelling is about.
And what would you consider the elements that a story should have to excite you and be memorable?
Okay, certainly. Well, definitely storytelling needs to employ something more than just a quick overview of what happened to somebody, having a start, a middle part, and then an end. We need to have a setting. We need to have one or a few heroes and heroines, and we need a sequence of events. Most importantly, we also need an issue, a conflict, a point around the story that everything that happens circulates and in a way connects the audience to the protagonist. A good story is always engaging the audience, keeps it hooked, and allows some at least interaction. While it utilizes not just the voice, but also signs, gestures, alterations of the tone of the voice of the person that tells the story, the storyteller. Emotions are also a plus, and this means bringing the audience with you on a journey of feelings, including being thrilled, feeling suspense, creating expectations of how the story will develop.
So when you tell stories, do you base them on your own experiences, on your personal experiences, or you prefer to take on fictional roles?
Well, stories based on my own experiences are actually certainly much more live. They're warmer, and I can put more emphasis and emotions in certain points of them. So I truly try to use them as often as possible. But it always depends on the audience and on whether my personal stories can assist me in connecting with them. When, for example, we have a different audience than what is around me, my social, educational background, my experiences, there I feel that I need to employ fictional characters that can have a more close to them position in life, where things can take more edgy dimensions and that can draw their attention and keep them engaged. And of course, it also depends on the storyteller. How was his life, what experience he has gained, and what can be shareable, because sometimes some experiences are not easily shareable to others. As a first, I would definitely try to use my own experiences, but in case I feel that these may not create a clear link to the audience that I have in front of me, then a bit of fiction should be used also.
Can you give us an example of how storytelling has affected a group of youth that you've worked in the past?
Yeah, sure. So I use a lot of stories during my my different interactions with youth, especially in a lot of classrooms. So the setting is not very inspiring, and I have to draw their attention to specific notions, specific issues that I need to be discussed. So one of my favorite is during a class that I have that I talk to young people on how international trade has transformed the way that we live, is that I usually use my experience when entering a supermarket during the early 1990s. So just imagine that back then the variety of products was very low compared to today's situation. And this is very difficult to be understood because my students, they usually have an average age of 18, 19, 20 years old at best, meaning that they have some impressions from visits in supermarkets from a period starting around 2007, 2008, somewhere there. So they cannot really understand how international trade has changed the way we shop. They cannot connect to stories about food scarcity, of not being able to find a specific product because shops would import just a few pieces and not many shops would actually do even that. So I'm telling them of how me being around 10 years old had to go through so many supermarkets and stores and compete with other boys, to be honest, for an imported chocolate. So, there you can, I use a lot of, the anxiety that I had as a young boy on whether I can find the specific chocolate that I really loved, and how now the evidence that we have is the key word when entering a shop. So, in today's shopping experience, you definitely usually don't feel this anxiety of whether I can find something that I really want to purchase. So through this story, they're gradually introduced to some of the benefits of international trade from consumers and young people, and it then passes it on to them for similar like situations. So then I go the story to them and I try to ask them to give them their personal experiences on the subject matter. So indeed, stories can help get the attention and push forward an interaction in the class that helps in the very end with knowledge transfer, which is actually my aim when I'm in a classroom.
Definitely. So you can say that there is an educational purpose also to the story. I mean, you've mentioned this in the introduction also, but what is your experience with how students react to these stories?
Okay, so just imagine that usually as a youth worker, I have people that they're much younger than me. Sometimes they may be so young that there is a bit of an age gap, so I cannot really connect with them in terms of common experiences. They're also usually dragged, some of them at least, a part of them, hopefully each time not a big one. They have been dragged to the class, to the meeting, to the point where I'm taking the lead for setting up a discussion or an activity or whatever. So some of them, they feel that they're there by obligation, or they just want to check on whether this that will happen is something that it is relevant to them, important to them, etc. So you need to get the interest of this audience, and the story is something that it is a perfect introduction to getting them engaged to what it's going to follow. And in education, having the audience engaged, having people following on what you say, not just just hearing you, but really hearing you and getting what you're trying to pass on to them is very, very important. So storytelling is something that can be employed, especially if you have these difficult audiences that sometimes it's a given.
So when you put yourself in the shoes of the audience, do you remember an instance in your life that a story had a significant impact on you, and what was this impact?
Well, yeah, but definitely this is why, to be honest, I usually try to use stories when I talk to other people, and especially young people, because when I was younger, I was significantly affected by stories. I can recall two specific ones that actually defined a lot of what my studies would be about, as well as my current work selections. So the first one was during my high school years, when a person working in the shipping industry talked during class on his work life, and on why he thinks that being a shipbroker, he was a shipbroker, is something great. I was so fascinated by his daily routine, on how exciting his course to becoming a shipbroker was, that I was convinced to select for my studies a department related to shipping. His story was so warm, so inspiring. It definitely got my attention. And it pushed me forward into asking more questions afterwards, and a bit gathering information and doing a research on how you can become a person working in the shipping industry. So definitely it was a must, and it was something that really had an impact on me. The other occasion was at a very key. It was when I had a very key figure of the Greek nonprofit ecosystem in front of me that gave a speech on the sincere attempts to support others in need. He talked about the needs, highlighting very, very specific case studies, various opportunities to support, and how he was amazed by this world of ordinary people fighting to support others in greater need. Hence, from that, my attempt to use whatever skill sets I have towards supporting others that do that, which led to the creation of a nonprofit supporting other nonprofits. When I look back to those moments, I see how the stories themselves touched me, how they grabbed my attention, and how I found myself feeling the story as I was part of it, and actually leading me to wanting to be part of somehow the same story, my story. So definitely, just imagine that it is quite hard to get the attention of a person that it is 14, 13 years old on employment, who actually 12, 13, 14 actually thinks about employment and what I will do in my life. It's quite a difficult crowd to win. And this person from the shipping industry actually was very successful with me. And think about how hard it is to get the attention of what I was then around 28 years old, and I was an advisor on a multinational company. And there is somebody from the NGO ecosystem talking about civil society organizations and philanthropy. I think that with the absence of stories that took me on a journey when I was hearing these stories, and I went on to trying to see how I would be present in such stories. These two people wouldn't get my attention, and definitely, even if they got my attention, this wouldn't have led to me shaping a lot of my future steps. My education in order, my bachelor education in order to find afterwards my first employment position, and B, changing my then employment position from a multinational consultancy to setting up something that is related to the nonprofit sector. So definitely there was a very, very a big impact on me.
Wow. Well, from all the things you said, I think it's safe to assume that storytelling can open new worlds and new perspective to a certain audience and inspire, and even as you said in your case, change the life course of one person. So I think this is very, very important, and we can understand it can be very, very impactful, especially when we are talking about youths. And this is why we also believe it's such an important tool to have in youth work. So thank you, Sotiris. Thank you for your time and being here with us and sharing all your experiences. And we hope to see you soon in next adventures.
Thank you very much, Selena, for giving me the floor to share my experiences, and good luck with your future endeavors.
Thank you.